Mm. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. I hope you are doing great. Now, thank you so much for joining in, and thank you for those who are going to join in. Today, Nelly and I, we are discussing, or we're going to be having a conversation on a very interesting topic: how to raise, or in fact, raising resilient children in an uncertain world. That is what we're going to be discussing today. And for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Peggy Barre. I'm the founder of Arise and Thrive Academy, a domestic abuse practitioner. I'm going to pass it to Nelly to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. My name is Nelly Kwasinwi. I'm a social worker, transformational life coach, and co-director for Hand in Hand Community CIC. It's a crucial topic. We are talking about emotions. How do we raise children who are emotionally resilient in this world? It's chaotic. A lot of things are going on. So join us. If you have any comments, please type them and we will read that out. Let it be interactive. If you have any question, no, there's no stupid question. Just ask the question, because you might be surprised that the question you are thinking that is a stupid question, it will be exactly the same question that some other person is asking or is having. So feel free. We are not here to judge you, just to learn from each other. Peggy and myself, we are learning each time we come on these sessions. So we hope to learn from you and vice versa, you to learn from us. So stay tuned.
Absolutely, that is so true, Nelly. And like I said, I'm looking forward to this session today because I'm going to be learning from you, especially speaking from social worker, children's social worker perspective. It's always very important to kind of listen to you, tune in, see what is there that I can pick from. And yes, so I would like us to start the session by just sharing a short story. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to raise resilient kids in this our today's world. When I think of my childhood, right, growing up in the village, very poor family with a single mom, or my grandma, I will classify her at that time as a single grandma. She was raising me up. And I would say the training that she gave me was tough, Nelly. As a child, throughout my childhood life, I would say the highest time I've ever had enough sleep was 6 hours of sleep. Because in the morning, I am awake 4 a.m. in the morning to make puff puff, right? That she is going to fry and give me to take to school to sell. When the teacher is in front teaching, I'm behind selling puff puff underneath the table. Okay. And then when I finished school, my grandma used to take my food to the farm. She won't leave it at home because she knows that if I come home, I might not eat. I'll eat and not follow her to the farm. So she'll take it to the farm. And so I need to go to the farm. I will finish. And then all the time I was always late and working. There was one day I asked her, I was crying because there was one day I got so tired. I was exhausted and I cried. And I said to her, I said, Grandma, why are you punishing me? Grandma, why are you doing all of this to me? And she looked at me and smiled. She said, this training that I'm giving you, I'm equipping you with capabilities and with abilities that when you grow up, even if you find yourself in a desert, you will survive. But you know, as a child, it didn't make sense to me. But today it does. It does make sense to me. But that was years and years and years ago. What is the difference with us today? Can I raise my children with that same standard, with that same routine, that same pattern that I was being raised? So that is the question that we are asking today, because I think that if I were to institute that same lifestyle, I would definitely be tapped as an abusive parent. So this is why we're going to be talking today, Nelly. And you tell me whether I'm right or wrong from the children's social worker perspective.
Yeah,
Whether
that is really, really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there are certain parts of your childhood that I can relate to. But basically, like growing up in an African background, there
Mm.
is that saying that we are strong because we have so many, there are so many reasons why we grew up with the conditions that we did.
Yeah.
However, fast forward to now, we can realize that we are resilient in certain ways. And bringing
Mm.
that to our children now, like you said rightly, some of those kind of parenting will be classed as abusive, that you are abusing your child.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking from the social worker's perspective, this is a massive concern because, especially in the Afro Caribbean communities,
Mm-hmm.
parents say, but this is the way, or that is the way I was brought up. I want to bring up my children that way. And there's massive confusion because some people are saying, even recently, I spoke with someone who said the system has stopped or has refused them from disciplining their children.
Mm.
And I said clearly, that is not the case. No system has been put in place to take away the parents' power. Rather, it's out of fear that parents have given away their powers. Because,
Mm.
okay, back in the Afro Caribbean communities, for instance, we did not know about safeguarding. Because a parent will wake up in the morning, whether they're going to the farm, going to the market, going to work, going anywhere, they feel it's okay to leave even a 1 year old at home or just
Mm.
pop up to the neighbor and say, I'm going out, just look after the child. That was acceptable. And in
Yeah.
some areas, it is still acceptable. But now, fast forward, we are in a different country, in a different continent that has different systems in place. Now we hear of safeguarding. And this is a cultural shock that people who travel from African countries to the UK and other countries in the diaspora they face, because some of them will still have, I mean, without knowing, they will still think that it's okay for them to leave their child at home, but the child is safe at home, so they leave the child and they go. And most of the cases have come to social services because, like, we have nosy neighbors that will ring if they see, because it's for the welfare of the child, because safeguarding is everyone's concern. So
Mm-hmm.
if a neighbor notices that the child or children are being left at home by themselves, it is
Mm-hmm.
their right to ring social services that they are concerned. But then when the social worker comes or visits the home and meets the parents, most of them that I've seen are very argumentative because they say they've provided everything, they've kept the child, they've made sure food is in the house, drink water is in the house, and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
that is not acceptable. The child is a minor. They don't need to be left home by themselves. And it's worse when the child is very young. When I
Yeah.
say very young, because there's no definition on when you can leave a child, or there's no precise age in any legislation in the UK when you can leave a child at home. But then it's for you, the parent, to start noticing what can this child do. Say when they start getting to teenage age, you can leave a child, but then is how can that child keep themselves safe? Because some
Mm.
parents don't even feel comfortable to leave their 17-year-old child at home by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But again, some other parents can leave their child even as say 10, 12 at home, and they know the child is responsible to take care of themselves, keep themselves safe. So those are some of the things where we have generational differences, cultural differences, continental differences. The differences are just so many. And again, age difference.
Yeah.
And now coming to our children now, because as we are talking, it doesn't only apply to children in the diaspora. It
Mm-hmm.
also reflects the children wherever in all other continents. Because just this evening, I attended a training
Mm-hmm.
on on sexual abuse, child sexual offending, and it really, really struck me to think that now we are hearing a lot of those in the African countries or Afro-Caribbean communities feel open to talk about incidents of rape. Some sadly have said they tried to talk to their parents, but their
Mm-hmm.
parents did not want them to talk about it, saying that they'll bring disgrace to the family,
Yeah.
disregarding the child's feelings. So, just looking back, there were just so many safety issues that were not considered. But now,
Yeah.
with advancement in academics, there's a lot of research, which then the system is implementing safeguarding policies which are taking it very serious. Because looking at the older generation, including
Mm-hmm.
ours, you see people are struggling. Those struggles don't come from their experiences now, they come from their childhood because they
Yeah.
had no voice. They were being
Mm-hmm.
abused, they were being victimized a lot, but again, they had no one to talk to. Some tried to talk, but they stopped them. So again, how do we think this impact on the resilience of our children?
That is so powerful. That is so true, Nelly. And if we want to, in fact, this is why we need to actually start rewriting the story or start rewriting the narrative, if we want to put it that way. Because by you breaking a cycle is by realizing that the way I was brought up, even though there was some aspect of goodness in it, it affected me in a lot of ways. So what are you going to do differently so that you break that cycle so that we it doesn't affect our children? So I feel that if I think you had some statistics there, if you share the
Yeah,
statistics and then maybe we first of all kind of define what is actually resilience, and then we can flow from there.
yeah. Sometimes we have a plan, but the energy is just so different, and we just go off.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is the common explanation for resilience is one's ability to bounce back. To bounce back from what? To bounce back from challenges. Because
Yeah.
my challenge might not be Peggy's challenge. So it is by each individual's capability. When something happens, how do you get up and continue doing your thing? So basically, that is resilience.
Yeah.
I have some statistics here. So statistics from the UK shows that 1 in 6 children aged between 5 and 16 identify mental health conditions. This is from the NHS. If it is 1 in 6, considering that Afro-Caribbean, those in the Afro-Caribbean community, their help-seeking abilities is very, very low. It's easy when they get into crisis. So
Mm-hmm.
I would presume that these statistics by the NHS is far too low,
Yeah.
because majority of people don't seek help
Mm-hmm.
when their health they feel that they can manage, and especially Afro-Caribbeans, because we will keep going that no, I will take some herbs, I'll take some teas, I will sleep, I will until it gets to crisis. So these statistics, it seems high, but it is not representative of the actual figures that exist, because I feel it will be more than this. Then another statistics is that referral to children's mental health services significantly increased post-COVID.
Mm.
And schools report the rising concerns around anxiety, emotional regulation, and low self esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Which, this, just looking at this in the UK, the statistics in the UK, I can I agree with it, because you look at, like, on social media, you see things, you read things, you hear things, and that is not, I mean, we don't get up to a tenth of the incidents that happen. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
statistics now from Africa: 10 to 20% of children and teenagers experience mental health challenges.
Mm.
Just think of it. In most African countries and in Afro Caribbean communities, there is a stigma, there is a barrier,
Yeah.
cultural misinformation about mental health.
Yeah.
So imagine a child is struggling, but then they can't even explain it, because besides not being able to explain it, we do not have the vocabulary to say what's going on with us.
Yeah.
Because, like, we say a child, even an adult, can be complaining of constant stomach ache. Go to the doctors. The doctors will give medication for stomach ache. But in actual fact, it could be anxiety and not the stomach ache itself. So
Mm.
without having the vocabulary to explain what is going on in their bodies, they will be giving the wrong medication, which will not be helpful.
Yeah.
Another statistics here is compounded adversity such as poverty, conflict, instability, and limited access to mental health really affects children and young people's mental health or emotional resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And the last statistics I have here is some regions, over 50% of population less than 18, making resilience building a critical societal priority. Which, when I saw that statistics, I was like, that is massive. Because when I read it, I was just smiling, because I didn't know it went up to 50%. Just
Mm.
to show how, like, knowledge, people are making use of the knowledge. Because
Yeah.
just just when the COVID started, I experienced burnout. And I started talking about burnout because I had been working in mental health establishments and the prison for over a decade. And I knew what mental health was. And when I experienced mental health, I started talking about it. But to my shock, those in my community within the UK, they rang me and said, Nelly, why are you talking about mental health? I was like, why won't I talk about mental health? They said, mental health is a white man's thing. That was a few years back. It's not long ago.
Mm.
So we look at it that those in our community, they work in mental health institutions, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that all of them believe in it.
Yeah. And just think about that was really fascinating, Nelly. And you just think about the fact that if a parent or an adult, which I think most of them would have been parents, if they don't believe that mental health exists, how are they going to be able to believe their child or their children who is going or experiencing one? So that means they will not be able to support that child. And this is the thing that we're talking about, that when as parents, there are certain things that if we don't recognize them as parents, we will likely miss them with our children. And we are actually just building more like a ticking time bomb. At the moment, we will feel like, you know what? No, I'm parenting my child well. I'm providing for my child. I'm getting them food. They've got uniforms to wear. They've got clean shoes to wear to school and all of that. But we forget that the emotional, something inside is missing. And that is what is most important. And when we talk about raising like ticking time bomb, is more like that child is going to get to a point where that child cannot even cope, because we've talked about resilience as the ability to bounce back during challenging time. And this is where, when we don't raise children who are resilient, when the slightest issue, slightest problem, when they face the slightest challenge, they go downhill. And when they go downhill, they find it so difficult to stand up. And you know what that means when it comes to mental health. I just wanted to add that in terms of the definition that Nelly gave, which was a brilliant definition, the ability to bounce back, when we face adversity. In our Afro Caribbean community, or even the old school day people, like our parents, they saw resilience differently from what we as parents need to see resilience today. For them, resilience meant that you never cry, or you don't have to show your emotions, right? And for them, resilient means that you have to be perfect, right? You need to achieve everything. Everything has to be dot 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 dot. That means, hey, you are a resilient child. You're doing well. Resilient means obeying without questioning. For some culture, when a child is obeying, like the child just takes and takes and takes, and whatever thing that parent is throwing at that child haven't got the gut, or even got the confidence to question it. For them, for some parents, that is resilience. And resilience to some parents mean acting grown up very early. And you see a child who is just a child struggling with certain emotion, and you're like, you know what, just grow up, grow up, grow up. You're asking that child to grow up when they're not you're asking them to act grown up. So that is what resilient is not about. And of course, resilient, again, for some parents and for some Afro-Caribbean community, means bottling everything up. Don't speak, just keep swallowing and swallowing, and don't speak up. So we are saying that in our today's world, that is not resilient. Maybe 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years ago, that would have been the definition of resilience. But today, in our world, that is not definition of resilience amongst our children, which of course, Nelly and I, we're going to be exploring what really resilient really means in terms of us as parenting our children. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just hearing what you are saying there, Peggy, I think majority, I mean, I don't even think that our parents, our like down the line, they knew what resilience was or
Mm,
was, because we are just, those are words that we are learning, isn't it? That like the
yeah.
buzzwords that are coming up now. But looking at it critically, there's a common example that I used to give, that
Hmm.
when we were growing up, we used to hear that, oh, this child looks like the neighbor. We just took it for that. But now I am understanding that differently, and I reflect a lot. So
Hmm.
I reflect, and there is one of the cases that I knew about, and I could not understand how that happened,
Mm,
where this couple, they had, I mean, the wife was not giving birth. And then after so many years, she started giving birth, and she gave birth to about three children. But then later on, I was still young. We heard that that
hmm.
father is not the father to those three children. Okay, just pause there. Pause there. Yeah. How would you, I mean, what had been going on? Because okay, the wife was getting along, or the couple were getting along, but
Yeah.
it was clear that
Yeah.
the resilience whatsoever was not there. And you look at it, cultural expectations play a lot in what we want to please our parents. We don't want the community to talk against us. We need to follow the rules of the community. We need to impress community. So it's always about others, others, and not us.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, resilience is what comes at the forefront, but not internal. But looking at it now, and that is thanks to the research that has been carried on, they've done long-term longitudinal research, which they have recognized. And again, now in my role as transformational life coach, I speak with people who are struggling, for instance, with their confidence, but
Yeah.
then they just want quick fixes. And when I don't do quick fixes, I always say it, I don't do quick fixes. If you are struggling with confidence, it's easy to say, oh, this person did this person did that. But no, whatever is happening now is not, it's just a trigger.
Yeah.
Those, or there are elements in your life from you growing up that impacted you. And like you said, our parents, they felt that they were bringing up strong, obedient children. But then it meant that children were pleasing their parents and not being themselves, which is where
Mm-hmm.
children grow up not even knowing themselves because they were just doing what their parents asked them to do, or those in their family and those in their communities. And parents, even till date, parents will dictate careers to their children, will tell them, you do this, you don't do that. So instead of giving the child the opportunity to explore and learn and become independent, parents
Mm-hmm.
become very overprotective, which means the children grow up and they don't even know what to do because things have always been done to them. But now, looking at, so that is majority of where the differences in resilience comes from the older generation and the younger generation now. So for the younger generation,
Mm-hmm.
their interpretation of resilience means that they can express their emotions
Yeah.
safely, unlike suppressing. So the older generation would suppress their emotion, but the younger generation, they just need a safe space. We talk of psychological safety. They just want to feel that they are listened to, they are not
Yeah.
judged, they are just understood. They want to recover from setbacks rather than avoiding those setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, again, it goes back to the older generation. They want
Yeah.
to adapt to uncertainty. For instance, there's mostly stress within the family and globally. Children just want to learn those skills to adapt. That is how children see resilience. They
Mm-hmm.
want to maintain hope despite the challenges, just to know that things will get better because having hope is something massive. And the
Yeah.
last point I'll talk about is young people want help seeking when needed. So if young people are able to say when they are struggling, they go and say, I am struggling. That's what they need for them. That is resilient. And you'll see it's a massive gap between the older generation and the younger generation. And like for parents, they don't understand, which is why sometimes parents want to talk to a child and the child is so dismissive because the child has heard the parent mourn so many times on that particular thing and it's not helping the child is not learning, and the child talks back. It's not that I mean, we will misinterpret it as the child is being disrespectful, but the
Mm-hmm.
child just wants to be understood. The child just wants the parent to explain. But again, communication, we talk about communication all the time. Parents don't communicate properly. So
That
yeah,
is
over
so
to you,
true.
Peggy.
That is so true, Nelly. And when you were talking, in fact, if I could say, I summarize what you've said, the key to actually building resilient children as a parent is one, to be present and available, because there's a difference between being present and available. Some parents today, we are, in fact, there are days that I come home, I'm present, but I'm not available, Nelly, because I'm blank out. You know, my child may be talking to me and he thinks that he's talking to mommy, but no, mommy is not listening. Mommy is not hearing because you know what? I'm blanked out. So it's important to be present and available. And secondly, to listen. Because if we're not available, we will not be able to listen. And when we talk about listening, it's about listening even the things that our children are not telling us. And this is where we've talked about active, when we talk about communication, we talk about active listening as part of a communication skill. So sometimes our children may be telling us something they're not verbally telling us, but they are telling us in other ways. If we are not active and if we are not available and present and available, we will miss it. And I think another important thing is for parents to be able to acknowledge. In fact, even though I'm just talking about, we're going to be talking about some of the steps that we can do as parents to raise resilient kids. But when you were talking, it just came to my mind that, hey, I need, as a parent, I need to be present, I need to be available, I need to be able to listen, and I need to acknowledge. Because when you talk about acknowledgement, Nelly, there's a lot of things that we dismiss it as parents. Just like, for example, you say when a child comes to you to tell you about something, you dismiss that thing. Why? Because you, as a parent, have been dismissing it all your life, and you feel that it is normal. It is normal to dismiss it. So yeah, it is very important that we bear that in mind. And when you were talking, one thing came to mind as well, that it is important to, well, we've talked about emotions a lot, because if our children are not able to express themselves, what happens? They bury everything inside. And of course, that affects them. It affects them to the point where even if they break down, they will not even be able to seek help. They're not going to seek that help. Well, they don't want to seek help from you, the parent, because they feel that, you know what, you're not going to help them anyway. But secondly, they will not want to seek help even from a professional, because they feel like they don't trust that professional, because they feel like that professional is also not going to believe them or dismiss them, because as a parent, you've been dismissing them from home. So we can see the cycle that our children can, they can go through a cycle which is actually difficult and very, very traumatizing for them. And so that is why, as parents, we really need to be careful, and we really need to make sure that we parent without being abusive or being labeled as abusive parents. Now, before I jump over back to you, Nelly, I would just want to acknowledge those who are watching. I can see a few, but I don't know who is watching. But in fact, if you're watching, we just want to acknowledge you. We just want to say thank you. You're welcome. Please, if you have any question or have any comment, put it in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation. Now, Nelly, I just want to pass back to you.
Yeah,
If we, if
thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Peggy. When you were talking, an example just came to me. There was this young adult, I was a young person, whom
Mm-hmm.
I was working with. She contacted me to say that she was at uni, but things were going on at home. She was not staying at home. She was staying close to uni, away from parents. But things
Mm-hmm.
were going on at home, and it was affecting her while at uni, because she was easily falling out with her friends, but then she was she was blaming the friends that they were doing things. So she got in contact with me and said she was really struggling, and the issues that she presented was that her friends were making her angry. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's not an issue, let's talk about it. So I used different tools. So I helped her to start looking deeper than the surface, because I told her, I said, these your friends that you are talking about, they are the triggers, but the
Mm-hmm.
actual root cause of your issues are separate. So as the conversation went on over a number of sessions,
Mm-hmm.
she started realizing that, oh, when she was younger, one of the parent was really controlling and things like that. And then for me, that is where I drill down that, like, think of when was the first time you felt that you could not express yourself, because her being the first child, she felt that it was her responsibility to look after her younger siblings. So anyway,
Mm.
and her relationship with her parents were broken down. And though she was at uni, she was worried because her siblings were at home and that control was going on. She had tried to talk to her parents, but they were dismissive, which
Mm-hmm.
it's very common within our community. So as I did work with her, I used different strategies like write a letter, and she wrote a letter to her dad so many times, but I instructed her not to send the letter to her father, because when you are angry, the things that come out from your mouth, or when you are writing, the things that come out. Sometimes, if you just send it to other people, you who sent that message will regret. So, as the sessions were going on, and from what she was saying, she felt calmer and things like that. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
your parents were doing the best they could,
Yeah.
but they were looking at it now. You felt that there were things that you wanted to tell them, you could not relate with them, and things like that. She even said her parents don't even know her, and things like that, which I've heard so many times.
Yeah.
And she started taking that, because she was putting a lot of blame on the parents, which I say we don't need to blame our parents, because our parents did their best. Our parents loved us. It's just the resources that they had. But it's for us now, because of advanced technology, let's make the changes.
Yeah.
And thanks to technology, that now so many things are being exposed, because
Yeah.
you go on social media, people are talking about things that they have gone through, their experiences, that previously no one would even listen to them, because if they want to talk to their parents, it's a no. Avoidance, we've
Mhm.
talked about avoidance, but now on social media, people are talking, and that sometimes the things that you just hear on social media, you are thinking, when we were younger, we used to have our secret books where we write our secrets. But some people's secrets are on social media, and you are thinking, it's because some people have found social media to be the space for them to expose whatever. Though it is good on one hand, but on the other hand, who are the audience? And we worry about our young people, because if parents are not able to manage their emotions and they go and rant on social media, who knows how they're ranting at home? And what are children copying? The same thing. And then they go on social media and see their parents ranting. So, besides their parents' reactions, the children have their own pressures from their friends and so on. So it
Mhm.
feels doubled. So, which is why I feel children now, it feels like they are getting worse. For me, it's because they are carrying the burden of their parents, and also theirs from their colleagues, the expectations put on them. But again, thanks to technology, that people are able to vent. But again, we need to be mindful, which is why creating safe spaces for people to talk about what they are experiencing. Some don't even have the vocabulary for it, but how you feel, because everyone understands what is feeling. The interpretation might be in many different ways, but
Mhm.
creating those safe spaces are very, very important. And like a
Yeah.
parent, no matter where you are, for me, is learning. I'm sure communication and learning is something that every session, Peggy and myself will talk about it, because it's massive. Yeah. So over
Yeah.
to you, Peggy.
Definitely. I'm not sure whether it seems as if you're freezing a little bit, Nelly. You're freezing a little bit, but yeah. So just like Nelly was saying, that communication is actually a massive, massive tool that we can always carry in our box. We can't go wrong with effective communication as parents. We can't go wrong, and creating a safe space for our kids. So we have heard, we've talked about, we've defined resilience, we've defined what resilient means, we've talked about what it doesn't mean, we've talked about what it means for our children in this generation. So now we're going to be exploring how can we actually raise up resilient children without being labeled as abusive parents. So we are looking at a side by side, right? So it's raising up a resilient child needs to come from the aspect of we from love and support, not fear. I think if there's one thing I've kind of caught with Nelly always says that if you want your child to do something, or you don't want them to do something, two things you need to bear in mind. Are is it fear that is actually controlling you, or love? Are you doing it from the standpoint of fear or the standpoint of love? That I've taken with me seriously. So resilient, by being raising up a resilient child, it's about support. It's about looking at, you need to be supportive. You need to make sure, they need to make sure, what they want to know, that you are there, you are present, you are available. It's not about fear, right? It's not about fear, and it's not about punishment. So I think we're just going to explore some of the points, how we can build resilience without actually crossing the line of harming them. The first one on my list is, we need to let our children struggle, but we do not need to abandon them. I'll say, for example, there are times that we are, some parents today, we are very easy. We don't want our children to go through any hardship. We don't want to see them struggle. In fact, we don't want to actually let them use their own judgment, so that any single thing we do it for them. And then how do we actually expect them to learn and build that resilience? So it is about letting our children, yes, let them lose the game. Sometimes if they're playing game, allow them lose that game, because when they lose that game, it's watching how they're going to react. I'm sure Nelly have shared about this some time ago, about her, even her own son. When a child loses a game, how do they react after that? If they go start punching the wall and start screaming and banging doors, then that is when you know there is something wrong. They are not capable, or they have not been trained to manage their emotion. And for you, building resilience in that child is about telling that child, it's not about spanking that child or shouting or screaming at them at that moment. It's about teaching them how to manage their emotion when things don't work their way. So that is another way. And that will come from the point, have there been, and this is another thing that I would want you as a parent to ask yourself, that child behaving that way, first of all, ask, where has that child seen that behavior from? Is that child seeing it from somewhere home? Is that child seeing that behavior from you, the parent? When things don't go your way as a parent, how do you react? Do you scream? Do you shout? Do you swear? Do you bang the door and all of that? Because mind you, the way you are reacting when things don't go your way, that is what your kids are also learning from you when things don't go their way. So raising children, resilient children, is just helping them to struggle. Allow them to struggle, but don't abandon them. Let them get angry, but then you bring them and say, hey, buddy, that is not the best way to react when you're angry. How do you express yourself when you're angry? So teach them how to express themselves properly. So Nelly, I know you are the emotion. Is there something you want to add on that before we move to the next point, Nelly?
Yeah. So emotions, it's not necessarily all the case that children will see reactions from, or children's reactions will be a replication of their parents' reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know when people are upset,
Yeah,
there's lots of emotion, there's lots of chemicals going in with them, there's that energy.
yeah.
It is okay to shout
Mm-hmm.
if you know that's how you let out that energy,
Yes.
because it's negative energy that you have. It's okay to punch. Use a punching bag, not a human being, or don't
Mm.
destroy property. Because some people, that is how they let go of the negative energy. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
see, some people, they go to the gym. Some people do different sports, because they want to burn that energy. That's how some people let go. Like if you look at it, those, I don't know the statistic, but I know people who feel low self-esteem or low confidence, they like doing boxing. Maybe that's
Mm.
something you might need to find out. So out of curiosity, I have asked a few people that I know who are doing boxing, and I'm asking, what is the link between boxing and low self-esteem? And they said it's because they want to be prepared. So if they get into a situation, they can stand for themselves. So again, it is good, but be mindful. Then, like, okay, screaming. If you want to scream, you need to consider who are the people around you. So,
Yeah.
like, there is when I was working at the rehabilitation center, one of the plans, when someone wanted to scream, like there was a lady, and when she was angry, her way to let out was screaming, because when she was, I mean, some part of her life, she lost her voice because she couldn't say anything, so that was her own coping strategy. She would scream. But the plan for her was, if she wants to scream, let her scream into her pillow to consume
Mm.
that noise, because if she just shouts, it will affect those around. And then going back to managing emotions, because
Mm-hmm.
there's this barrier, we don't talk about emotions within homes.
Yeah.
Our children have not learned what those emotions are, and emotions are natural, they come up. We can't say we will not experience a particular emotion because we don't
Mm-hmm.
create it, it comes. So it's to teach our children. You talked about, yes, I shared about my son, and there was a time my son was really angry. He was angry because he was confused, and he would do all sorts. And I was
Mm.
looking at him, he was a tiny boy, tiny child at the time. And me, I'm big. And I was like, so anyway, I would call him. I said, it's okay to get angry. It's okay to get upset. But how you behave when you are angry or upset, that is not right. Because there was a time he would punch his siblings. And I said, no, you are
Mm.
hurting others. So that way I was educating him that he was hurting other people.
Yeah.
And when like he plays a match and he loses, he will get really upset, really angry. And I would say, it's okay. When people are playing, there's always a team that wins and a team that loses.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned? So I was always asking him, what have you learned? What will you do different?
Yeah.
When you are angry, just spend some time by your own. It's
Yeah.
okay to get angry. You know, those are the kind of, it looks like small talks, but it's
Mm.
really, really important, because the child knows that yes, it's okay for them to get angry because it's an emotion, but it's how
Yeah.
they behave. And bit by bit. So when by the time he completed primary school, it took me 2 years, Peggy, 2 years. I
Wow.
worked and worked on him. So it took me 2 years, and he would sit. There was a time when I think about this, I always become very emotional,
Yeah.
because I think he was in, I think at the end of last year in primary school, and he came to me and he was like, "Mommy, thank you so much." And I was like, "Thank you
Oh.
for what?" And he said, "Mom, thank you so much. You took out the demons in my head. The monsters." No, he
Oh.
said monsters. "You took out the monsters in my head." And I was like, so it got me. So each time I talk about it, it still brings that the emotions that
Yeah.
I experienced then.
Yeah.
And then when he went to school, he would say, "Mommy, please, can you come and talk to my friend or talk to the children in school, like children who get really upset,
Yeah.
whatever in school. Even in high school, he used to, even this year, he still asked me, Mom, can you come to school and talk to the children in
Hmm.
school? And I was like, if I could, I would. But it's not easy because there are processes that you need to go through to be able to
Hmm.
speak to school. And I've said, I am trying to do that. I would want to speak to any child who is struggling emotionally, but it's a
Yeah.
process, and that's the process I'm going through. So it's for us, first of all, it's for the parent to build
Hmm.
on their own emotional resilience, then teach their children, because as a parent you can't say you want to teach your child emotional resilience whereby you will be panicking. That child will be picking up on your reactions and not what you're telling them to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That was so powerful. And yes, and you could see, Nelly, that there is a gap there. There is a gap there in schools, to actually, because he must be talking from experience. That means he is looking at his transformation, and he's watching at his other friends, and he can see the gap. He
Yeah.
can see the gap, and he can see that something is missing. And the only thing that got his transformation, or that really gave him the transformation, is just what you at home as a resilient parent, because you actually recognize that there was something missing. And for parents who haven't actually built that confidence to actually communicate with their children, just like you said, Nelly, they will let it slip. They will not even acknowledge it. And one thing that I picked from there is that sometimes as parents, when we see our children angry, or we see them maybe not getting frustrated, it might be a homework, it might be a schoolwork that they've given them, and they're struggling to do it and they can't do it, and they're getting frustrated, right? Sometimes as parents, we either jump in to stop them from reacting that way, rather than giving them the space. And that's another important thing that we as parents need to learn. We need to learn to give our children space so that they can build that mental resilience to actually overcome the challenges that they're going through. At that moment, just like Nelly said, it's okay to scream, if though they have to do it healthily, right? If they can go in their room, if they've got rooms, tell them, go in their room, go in your room. You can scream in your room, right? So long as you know that when you finish, come back, I'll be here. Sometimes what pet children just want to hear is that you, as a parent, you are there when they need you. You can tell them that, you know what, I understand how you feel, but when you finish going through what you're going, come back here. I'm here. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to talk. So that is one important key aspect. Because when you build, a child will build resilience, knowing that yes, they can overcome that thing that they're going through, but they know that they've got somebody to bounce back, to come back to have a conversation. Yeah. Another second point that I just want to talk about on how can we build resilient children is about, we need to validate their feeling, not every reaction. And again, that goes back to the first point that we'll talk about. When a child comes to you and tell you they're upset, you need to validate their feelings. You need to validate their emotion. Don't dismiss it. Don't just say, "Oh, suck it up," you grow up. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It may not matter to you as a parent, but it matters to that child. So whether we agree with it or not, we need to validate their feelings at that moment, how they are feeling. Are they feeling frustrated? Are they feeling angry? We need to validate that they are feeling, right? And how do we deal with it? This is now, it ties back to that first point where we need to, again, if we need to give them space, if they want to talk, then they can talk. We can give them that open space. Do you want to talk about it? Or do you want to talk about it now? Or do you want to talk about it later? So we need to create them that space, that healthy space. So, Nelly, I don't know whether you have something to add on that.
Yeah, I just want to add cultural identity and belonging.
Yeah.
That is massive, because considering that we are living in two worlds, as I'll put it, we
Mm-hmm.
have our country of origin which has different culture, and then we are wherever we are, and it's got
Mhm.
different culture. There's so many cultures. It might be a front door culture and a back garden culture, whatever culture it is. But to instill that cultural identity and for the child to know that they belong, because
Mhm.
belongingness is massive,
Yeah.
because it will give them, they will know where they really belong, and
Mhm.
it will help them with their resilience. Unlike when the child is in that confused state, they
Mhm.
get that stamina is not there. And
Yeah.
also for parents to instill hope in the children, that yes, they are going through these challenges, but there might be a better tomorrow. That is
Yeah.
just giving the children hope that despite the difficulties, there might be better chances the next day. So I
Yeah.
think if we go into the practicalities, I think this has been a mix, isn't it, Peggy? With
Yes.
the third point. So
Yes.
we have talked about in a different way. Let's encourage and promote our children to build problem solving skills. I know
Yeah.
Peggy talked about that, because instead of wanting to do things for our children, which is being
Mhm.
overprotective because of our insecurities, let's promote independence for our children. Give them the chance. If they make a mistake, so what? They will learn from their mistakes. And this is where we need to start reframing our definition of failure. Because
Yeah.
when we fail, at first, when we fail, it's like we committed a crime. But now we need to change that narration, because if we fail, is that we give ourselves the permission to try something new. And we have failed, yes, but that failure has given us a learning opportunity. And we are failing forward, because if we were to do that same thing, we will not use the same method that failed. So already we have learned from there. We need to instill this in our children. Let
Mhm.
them explore, try things their way, because children will like to do things their ways. Like, I know Peggy and myself, we talk about dishes in the sink all the time. So for Peggy and me, we have this thing which is from the way we were brought up. When
Mhm.
we use the sink, when we use a plate or pot or whatever, we wash it straight away, because for so many years that's what we've been doing. But that's not the case with our children.
Yeah.
Our children will drink water or drink a cup of tea, and they will soak the cup. It took me a long time to understand, and I'll be asking, you've drank just a cup of tea with a tea bag and milk. So what are you steeping in? What are you soaking in? But then it's taken me time, and I'm like, okay, do it your way, but it needs to be washed.
Yeah.
And now I explain, it's because of the bacteria. We don't see the bacteria with our naked eyes. But then sometimes we can start coughing, and each time anyone in my house just coughs, I'm like, you see, it's because.
I know.
So let's teach our children adaptability skills, because
Yeah.
it will really help them. And that it links to one of the points around independence. Let our children do things their own way. If they don't do it to our standards, which most at times they will do it for them, will be fine. But
Mhm.
for us, you will look at it and say, but what have you actually done? So it's to let them do it their way. And Peggy said, acknowledge them for what they have done, because you acknowledge the effort and not the results.
Yeah.
So parents, we need to take a step back, because majority of parents, they focus on the results, and then they
Mhm.
forget about the effort. And without acknowledging the child's effort, the child will not be bothered. They'll be like, anyway, if I put in much effort or I don't, I know I might not get the expected grade or expected result. It will
Mhm.
not mean anything to anyone. So then the child will not put in any effort, and obviously the results will be worse. But then
Yeah.
if we were acknowledging that child's effort, the child will feel that, oh, they're doing something, and they'll put in more effort in doing it. And surprisingly, the results would be better. And
Yeah.
then let's celebrate wins, every win. Let's celebrate. Let's not
Absolutely.
say we're waiting only for the big wins to celebrate. No, small wins, because that makes the child to feel that they are valued, they are worthy, instead of us just minimizing that, but it's just because, like, I say it like my children, when they tidy the kitchen, I thank them. They know it's what they have to do, but I thank them. Oh, thanks for tidying the kitchen. Just little thank you, but it means a lot to them. Like one of my children, if she does something, she will just come, Mom, Mom, you're welcome. So that's indirect way for her to tell me that I need to say thank you. So when she comes
Yeah.
and say, Mom, you're welcome, I'm like, oh, thank you. So
And
that's just
another
small
thing, yeah,
things.
exactly. Celebrating small things, small micro wins are very important because just like us adults, we like to be praised. Don't mind whether sometimes we like say, oh no, it doesn't matter. Come on, there is something with our nature by nature, we like to be praised. We want
Mm,
appreciation. So what about our children? It's the same thing. And when you praise somebody for something, they want to do it again and again and again. One thing that I just wanted to talk about is setting consistent boundaries. Because when we set consistent boundaries, it's very important because this is where um when we don't set boundaries, because again, like we've talked about so many times, Nelly, setting boundary is one. Following through with those boundaries is another thing. Do we set boundaries and follow up clear boundaries and follow up with those boundaries, or we don't set boundaries at all, or we are so unpredictable and very harsh? So for example, your child doesn't know the rule that you set around maybe what time do they come back home, right? And especially for teenage children, you might set a boundary, say you can go out with your friends. Like my son, I always tell my son that feel free, you can catch the bus so long as I know you've got money in your account, right? I make sure that he's got money in his account so that if he wants to spend or get something reasonable, he's got money. Catch the bus, go spend the day with your friends, but make sure that you are back home by 8 p.m. Now it's summer. At least the weather is now brighter. So now, usually, winter, I'll tell him be home by 6 p.m. But now, because the weather is at least getting brighter, I'll say be home by 8 p.m. That is the cutoff, that is the boundary. But when we set those boundaries, do we implement them? Because let me not lie you. There's sometimes that I will even forget that I told him that I'll be back by 8 p.m. And he will go and stay around that 8 p.m. That's when he's going to be ringing me and say, Mom, I'm still at my friend's place. I'm going to be catching the bus at 8:30. That means I'll be getting home around 10 p.m. That boundary is already, you've broke that boundary already. But then there is a leeway that I always tell him that reminded that you were supposed to be home by 8. I do not appreciate the fact that you've broken that boundary, right? Next time if you do that, so again, it's about there is some, and sometimes we need to ask him what made you stay. He might say sometimes we were playing a game, it took us longer, we just need to finish by so and so and so. Come on, parents, we are not robots. Sometimes we have to be flexible. But when we're flexible, we need to make sure that they understand that that is a boundary that we've set. Yes, we can be flexible, but don't push it. Don't keep pushing it all the time. Because if you keep pushing it all the time, then you're going to get the consequences. What is also the consequences that you set? Then follow through with it. Now, when we build things like that, it's teaching them a form of resilience. That one, they understand what boundary means, and two, they understand how to respect boundaries, and they can also build those boundaries with themselves as well. So I just thought I should touch on that. And then a last thing that was on my list again is about what we've talked about is model resilience yourself. Like we said, our children, yes, like you said, Nelly, not everything that our children will learn from us. Sometimes we can be very good parents, but they turn out to be whatever. But sometimes we can be bad parents as well, they turn out to be good kids. So again, you can never say, but at the end of the day, we just want to make sure we are modeling what we want from them. If you want your child to be a confident child, you as a parent, are you exuding confidence? Are you teaching yourself to be confident? Right? So it's about sowing a seed. What seed are you sowing in your children by your own behavior, by your own, a way of living? So that is the way, that is another thing, because the way we manage our resilience, or the way we build resilience, the way your child will watch you bounce back after a difficult challenge, you might have taught them that they would have learned from you that, wow, my mom, my dad, despite the fact that they went through this day, they've learned. So they're learning through that process as well. So yes, Nelly, I think we've got five minutes. We've gone 5 minutes over
Yeah,
time,
we've
but
gone past. I don't think, thanks,
yeah,
Peggy. I think in a way, I would assume that we've rounded up considering the time. So for me, for
yes.
my close, I just want to ask this reflective question for parents
Mhm,
to have a think, probably like their bedtime when they're going to bed. So just
mhm.
ask yourself, if you're a parent, personalize it, am I preparing my child or children for the world, or am I protecting them from it?
Hmm.
Just reflect on that question.
That is a good
So
one.
I think
That
for
is a good
me,
one.
that
Yeah.
is all I have got.
Yeah. And for me to round up, again, like we say, the best way to build a resilient child in this uncertain world is, first of all, you to be one, present, available, be able to listen, and be able to acknowledge. In that way, you will find ways to make sure that your child can easily bounce back when they go through any challenges, because you will navigate that challenge with them and teach them how to bounce back easily. So, thank you so
Yeah.
much for watching. Thank you for those that have tuned in. If you couldn't ask any question, if there's any question that you want to ask, please make sure you can put it in the comment. Nelly and I will reach. Unfortunately, I didn't see any question, or maybe you ask it and we didn't find it. But don't worry, if we see it, we're gonna answer you. And if you want to be part of our panel next time, we will gladly, gladly, gladly welcome you to be part of the discussion. So, without a further ado, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you learned something. Go out there, continue to be that resilient parent, continue to raise that resilient children that you'll be proud of and that they will be proud of you. We love you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.